Start. Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanao Bhunaktu Sah Viryam Karva Vahai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmad Acharya Paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Om Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwaraha Guru Sakshat Param Brahma Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Om Saraswati Namastubhyam Varade Kama Rupini Vidyarambham Karishyami Siddhir Bhavatu Me Sada. Karpanya Doshopahata Swabhavaha Prachami Tvam Dharma Samudha Chetaha Yashreha Sanishchitam Bruhitan Me Sishyasteham Shadimam Tvam Prapannam. Om Vangme Manasi Pratisthita Mano Me Vachi Pratishthitam Avira Virma Edi Vedasya Ma Anishtaha Shrutam Me Ma Prahasihi Anena Dhitena Ahoratran Sandhadhami Ritam Vadishyami Satyam Vadishyami Tanmam avatu tad bhaktaram avatu avatu mam avatu bhaktaram. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Bhadram Karnevihi Shunuyama Devaha Bhadram Pashya Makshavir Yajatraha Thirairange Tushtu Bhagvam Sastanubihi Vyesheha Devahitam Yadayuhu Swasti na Indro Vridakshavaha Swasti na Pusha Vishwavedaha Swasti na Tarakshyo Arishtanemihi Swasti no Brihaspatir Dadhatu. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Aham Vrikshasya Reriva Iti Prishtham Gireriva Urdhva Pavitro Vajiniva Swa Amritam Asmi Draviragvam Swavarchasam Swamedha Amritokshitaha Iti Trishankur Vedanuvachanam. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti.
Narayan, Narayan, everyone. Okay. So, we're starting chapter 13 today, the last Shatak of Gita, the Gyan Yoga. Yeah, okay, I think, so we've done the first two sextets, the first two Shataks. The first Shatak is the Karma Yoga Shatak, the second is the Bhakti Yoga, and now we're going to go on to the Gyan Yoga Shatak. So the first two are, they deal with the Vyakt form, the manifested form of Brahma, right? So at the beginning of chapter 12, Bhagwanji Arjun had asked a question. He asked, which form of worship is better? Is it Vyakt form, the manifest form, or the Avyakt form, the unmanifest form? And Bhagwan Ji basically replied to him saying that that it's very, very difficult for you to do puja or worship of the unmanifest form. And so it is best for you to do the worship of the manifest form. And then he explains what does the manifest form of worship look like, right? And then the person who does this kind of worship, what are his characteristics, what does he think, what does he do, how does he behave, etc. Now, in the last sextet, he's going to talk about the unmanifest aspect. He's going to talk about what does unmanifest aspect look like? Okay, and he's going to guide us. So why had he told us that you should not think about unmanifest aspect at this point of time? Because of body consciousness. We are all steeped in body consciousness, right? There is deha abhiman. There is deha abhiman of the body, right? So as long as there is body consciousness, that itself is going to be the greatest badha, the greatest impediment for us to be able to understand or relate to the unmanifest aspect. Okay, that's why we relate to the manifest aspect better, and it's easier for us to do that sort of worship. Now, in this chapter, in this entire shatak, he's going to try and help us understand how to get rid of this body consciousness, how to move past this. And ultimately, it is going to come back to us to strengthen our karma yoga, strengthen our bhakti yoga, the yoga through karma, the yoga through bhakti. At all points of time, remember that there is no way for us to get past the karma yoga or the bhakti yoga. They all have to be pulled together. You cannot, Gita is not one or the other or the other. They are all three put together. Ultimately, everything related to karma yoga, everything related to bhakti yoga has to translate into jnana. Right? We had read in chapter 12 that there are various forms of worship and various things that we have to do. And then there was a chronology, not chronology, there was this thing given, right, in Shloka 12, that knowledge is superior to just practice. So you can't practice without the knowledge, without the gyan, without knowing why you're doing something that you're doing. That knowledge behind the action is the supreme, is very, not supreme, it's the most important thing when you're doing an action. Whether it's an action of charity, whether it's an action of eating food, whether it's an action of help, whether it's an action of any kind of spiritual practice, whether it's an action of namjap, every action, you must have a clear understanding. You must have the knowledge of why you're doing it. Okay, and accordingly, mold your bhav, mold your intention correctly. Okay. So let's start with the 13th chapter, Kshetra Kshetragya Vibhag Yog. Okay, Kshetra Kshetragya Vibhag Yog. So we'll start with Vijay. Will you read with us?
Now starts the third and last text of the Holy Gita.
Vijay, stop. Okay, we have to first start the chapter correctly. Om Shri Paramatmane Namaha. Kshetra Kshetragya Vibhag Yoga Namaha. Now you can start.
Now starts the third and the last text of the Holy Gita.
So read from the title.
Yeah. The yoga of division of the field and the farmer. Introduction. Now starts the third and the last six texts of the Holy Gita. The first six chapter comprises of first sexes to be dealt with principally yoga of action, and hence the sexes is named as Karma Yoga. The next six chapters comprising of second sexes were mainly devoted to yoga of devotion, and therefore it is named as Bhakti Yoga. This concluding last six chapter throwing the light on absolute self and his manifestation through nature, which helps to perception of self. Hence, it is named as the six of Jnana Yoga.
So just one second, right? So to add on to what Tuina was saying, right? We're starting the third sextet for the Gita, which is the Gyan Yoga. One thing for us to be aware of is this sextet it applies to a lot of our logic. It's very easy for it. They make the concepts very relatable. It applies to a lot of our intellect and our logic, which is also another way of saying it is very easy to go to our ego, because you start understanding concepts, you start having more concepts you can share with others or talk to yourself. So it intellectually is very stimulating and intellectually very satisfying. But like everything, there is a purpose of why it is there. What is the purpose of Gyan Yoga? Right? What is the purpose of this entire sextet? I'll give you an example. What is the difference between you loving your mother and you experiencing a stranger? Why can't you love a stranger who's the same age as your woman, same age as your mother, who's also a woman, who's also from the same village? Why don't you love her the same way as you love your mother? What is the difference?
Sense of belongingness, love,
Okay.
physical form, that you put yourself into their physical form. That would be the mother's appearance.
So in what Gita shows us is its knowledge. You know your mother. You don't know the stranger. If you love is to know. If you do not know someone, you cannot love them. But to truly love someone, you know them fully. You accept them fully. So the reason why Gyan Yoga comes after Bhakti Yoga is the purpose of Gyan Yoga and all of these concepts is to fuel knowledge for us to love Bhagwan Ji more. Is to fuel that desire to be with him. And the only way to get eventual self-realization is through bhakti. So karma, why do we do karma? Why do we do actions? So that we clean our antakaran and we connect back to Bhagwan Ji. We're doing everything for him. Why are we doing Gyan Yoga? That we get to know him better so that we can be in bhakti with him throughout. When we read this entire sextet, that's the purpose with which we read.
And
This
ultimately, if our goal is self-realization, right? What is self-realization? Self-realization is removal of ignorance. And removal of ignorance can only happen by acquisition of the right knowledge. So this is that sextet. Let's start.
This chapter begins with the analogy drawn between raising of crops in the field by a farmer on one hand and creation of diverse forms in nature by self on the other. The field, like nature, is insentient, while the farmer, like self, is sentient. This analogy gives the chapter its name. As in the chapter, a distinction between sentient self and insentient nature has been clearly established to bring out the fundamental difference in their respective characters. Connection. Drawing this distinction, the Lord says,
So I'm sure Tuina will do the explanations, but sorry, the translations here. But Kshetra here means field, and Kshetragya means farmer. So in this chapter, we'll be using the analogy of field and farmer to better understand our relationship between self and the capital S self and the body and the actions of the body. Yeah, so that's the entire chapter.
Yeah. Kshetragya. Kshetra ko ka gyata. One who knows the field. Right? Okay. Shloka 1. Kavita, you'll read with us? Shri Bhagavan Uvacha
Shri Bhagavan Vacha
Idam Shariram Kaunteya
Idam Shariram Kaunteya
Kshetramithya Bhidiyate
Kshetramitya Bhidiyate
etadyo vetti tam prahu.
एतद्यो वेति तं प्राहु
Kshetragya iti tadvidah.
क्षेत्रज्ञ इति तत्विदः.
So here idam, we've seen this word being used before as well. Idam means this. This is anything that we can point to and see or experience, right? Idam is being referred to as the sharir, the body, but it also refers to every insentient aspect of this world, which basically means this entire material world that we see around us, that we can see, that we can experience, that we can think of, that we can perceive with our senses. That's idam. And the second part is tat, this and that. This is idam, that is tat. Tattva-didaha, last word, tat-idaha. Tat is referred to as that. Tat means that which is sentient. That's the kshetragya. So idam is the kshetra, the field, and tat, that is the gyata, kshetragya, gyata of the field, of the kshetra. And the gyata, or the one who sees, the one who perceives, the one who does action, not, I wouldn't say does action, but the one who really knows the field. In this example, we are using the example of a farmer to a field, as in that the farmer is taking action. But again, like, take these examples, any example, any analogy that we will give will always fall short of the reality, right? By the very nature of it being a part of the words, which are limited, right? So Kshetragya does not do any action, although in the example you'll see that it's the farmer that does action. Again, in the case of farmer, we will start to differentiate between the individualized self and the avyakta, the unmanifest form of the Lord, right? We'll understand where does Kshetragya sit and what do we mean by it. Let's read.
Drawing this distinction, the Lord said, O Kaunteya, the body is called Kshetra, field, and its knower is called Kshetrajna, former, by those who know both. The body as Kshetra, its knower as Kshetrajna. The shloka starts with the word idam, denoting this. It indicates the entire world of objects which can be pointed out by a finger. The body and the entire insentient world is denoted by the word idam. In contradistinction to it, the sentient self is indicated by the word tat, denoting that. The word kshetra has two connotations. One relates to the field in which the crops are raised. The other relates to all those entities which have no permanence and which are always in the state of flux. They have been described in chapter 8 as adibhuta. In Shloka 1 of chapter 1, a reference was made to Dharma Kshetra, or the field of righteousness, as well as Kurukshetra, or the field of actions. The farmer reaps a crop depending on the seed sown in the field. Similarly, the individualized self reaps the fruit conforming to motivated actions done through the instrumentality of the body. The word Kshetrajna denotes the self who experiences the body through his consciousness. The field cannot grow a crop by itself unless the farmer sows the seed. Similarly, the sentient self is the experiencer of the body and its master, and is its master. This is why he indicated by the word Kshetrajna. In this shloka, the Lord says that the sages who know this subject clearly and fully aware of the distinctive character of both Kshetra and the Kshetrajna. But ignorant people identify the self with the body, thinking the latter to be their real self, whereas the Jivatma, or the individualized self, is an entity distinct from the body. On account of this mistaken identification, they consider the birth of their bodies to be their own birth and death of their bodies to be their own death.
So here, in the very first shloka, they have drawn the clear distinction between Kshetra and Kshetragya. and how to understand the difference. The problem is that most people don't understand this difference really well, right? All of us don't. We may know it at an intellectual level, but we don't ever experience it. For us, we are our bodies, right? And everything related to the bodies. That is why we are steeped in body consciousness. As we rise above this body consciousness and start to, at some points of time, experience Krishna consciousness, we can start to see the distinction between the two very clearly. There is body. And when we say body, if you think about the Srishti Chakra that we have seen and its elements, everything below Atma is part of this body. Okay. So there are 5 gross elements, right? And then there are 5 subtle elements, the tanmatras related to it. Then there are 5 objects of perception, and there are 5 objects of action, right? So 20 of those. Then on top of that, we have the mind, the ego, the intellect. Okay. All of this are composed of the 3 gunas, the sat, the raj, the tam, right? All of this is part of what we call idam, the kshetra, the body. This entire complex is insentient, and it is lit by the light of Atma or the Jivatma, the individualized self. That individualized self is the only sentient aspect. And that sentient aspect is called the Kshetragya, the knower, the perceiver, the experiencer. Okay. Just as the field cannot do anything by itself, similarly, the Kshetra by itself cannot do anything. It is run by the power given to it by the Atma, by the Jivatma. Right? Now, the aspect of this entire body which is closest to Atma is the intellect. You remember we had read about that piece where we said that of all the aspects in our body, the one that can most closely reflect Atma is the intellect. When we had done the example of saying that if a magnet comes near iron, copper, or any other metal or a plastic, the one that will align the most with it is what? It is iron, because all its ions are going to organize themselves as per the magnet very quickly. And then if you bring something else near that, near iron, that piece of iron, it will reflect as if it's a magnet itself. You remove the magnet, immediately everything goes away, right? Iron becomes simple dead iron. It cannot activate anything else by itself. Okay, so this is exactly how we operate. So there is Atma. That Atma is reflected, the energy of Atma is reflected in the intellect. And so we tend to, in our ignorance, tend to think it is that intellect that's driving everything. And when we think of I, me, myself, we think of that intellect. Because it's intellect that is thinking, intellect that is guiding, intellect that is da-da-da-da-da. Then that intellect controls mind, which likes, dislikes, likes, dislikes. I want this, I don't want this. I want this, I don't want this. And then that mind with its likes and dislikes, which is guided by the intellect, depending on how strong our intellect is, it will then direct our senses. Okay, that's how the whole thing operates, the entire apparatus, right? So Kshetra is, or this entire apparatus is being actually lit up by the light of the Atma. Although the people who don't understand the difference will always feel that it is the intellect and the rest of it which is operating by itself. I am taking my own decisions. I am doing this. I am doing that. That I refers to the small I, which is basically this entire insentient nature. But the sages who understand the difference between the two understand the real knowledge. Okay.
So, Brad?
Yeah, go ahead.
So, this entire apparatus that Tuina has mentioned, right? When in function, when in use, we've all experienced moments of an observer beyond. We all have moments in our life where we can look back and be aware that, oh, I'm actually observing my intellect. I'm observing my mind. Sometimes you can even observe yourself physically from the outside. You can see yourself as a third person walking around. When you jog back your memories, and you're like, no, there's no way I can physically see myself. That's director and the actor. That director is the capital S self. That director and the observer is the farmer. The best way to visualize this, at least the way I visualize it, is imagine sun and sunlight. Sun and sunlight pervades everywhere. Correct? Imagine all of us are walking with a mirror. If your mirror is clean, you will fully reflect the sunlight. When you fully reflect the sunlight, you fully reflect divinity in everything that you see around us, because your mirror is just reflecting God, sunlight. But as your mirror gets dirty, your ego comes in, your likes and dislikes and your biases come in, the mirror starts reflecting less and less light. And when it starts reflecting less and less light, that is when you start associating yourself with the world, because you're no longer seeing the light. Now you're trying to find joy in all the uh, in the field. So the concept of idam is anything you can point to, anything you can use a finger and point to, that is unreal. That is idam. So there is no benefit we get in associating with anything that we can point to, including our bodies. And that is anything that you cannot point to, which is the capital S self, the farmer.
Okay. So we had, so this exact same thing that Abhinav was talking about, we had discussed this earlier when we were talking about 3 different avasthas, right? This whole next 6 chapters, what we are trying to do is trying to get a better understanding of this Jivatma now. Okay? The way it is in its unmanifest form. All right? So how do we know that there is this observer? We had talked about 3 different states of being. Right? There is Jagrat Avastha, when we are awake. There is second state, which is when we are sleeping, there is the dream state. And then there is a dreamless state. So when we are awake, our body, stool body, our gross body is awake and functioning, right? You can feel if somebody, if you can actually feel everything that happens to your body. You can feel everything that goes on in your mind. You can feel your intellect, all of those aspects, right? In this entire body, there is this physical body, which is called the Annamaya Kosh. The physical body, it's called Annamaya Kosh because it is related to food. You eat food and that is what sustains this body. So it's called the Annamaya Kosh, right? Then there is the Sukshma Sharir, apart from the physical body. So the 23 aspects that I talked about, right? So I said there are 5 physical aspects and there are 5, the 5 tanmatras, the subtle aspects. Then there are 5, then you have those objects of perception, objects of action, right? Senses of perception, senses of action. All of these are composed of what we call the subtle body, the sukshma sharir, right? This is also called that. So this sukshma sharir can be now divided up into different components, right? So with the mind, it is called the manomaya kosh. Okay. In between them, there is pranamaya kosh also. And above that, there is Anandamaya Kosh. So there are actually 7 koshas, but these are the main ones that we will talk about right now. So when we are awake, the Annamaya Kosh is active, right? Then when we go to sleep and when we are dreaming, your body has gone to sleep. Your body cannot do anything, right? But you're still aware, right? You're aware of what's going on. So that means you're not sleeping. Only the physical body is sleeping. That means whoever you are, whoever is this observer, whoever is saying, I went to sleep, right? You say that I went to sleep. I slept tonight. I slept very well last night. I did not sleep very well last night. So there is somebody who's observing and saying all of these things, right? When the physical body goes to sleep, your Annamaya Kosh is no longer active. It is no longer present. It is no longer able to observe anything or do anything. But there's something apart from that Annamaya Kosh that is obviously watching everything and is able to tell what happened last night. Now, when you are dreaming, in that Manomaya Kosh is active, right? You're dreaming, so your mind is awake. It is your mind that is dreaming up everything, right? And it is your mind that is creating all the dreams. Your buddhi is there as well, because your intellect is making all those decisions in your dream, right? Your chitta is active because a lot of your dreams are related to impressions on your chitta, your consciousness, right? In your memory bank. So all of these are active when you are in a dreamy state. They are active, they are constantly engaging to create a dream, and then you experience pleasure, you experience pain, you experience man and apman. So you experience pleasure and pain in your mind, which is active. You experience man and apman, which is in your mind at the level of intellect. So all of these are active. Okay. Then you pass from a dream state to a dreamless state. At the level of dreamless state, your mind goes to sleep. It is no longer active. Right? Your chitta goes to sleep. At that stage, you don't experience any pain, physical body pain. You don't experience any sense of pleasure or any kind of mental pain, agony, suffering. Everything goes away. That is why when people have a lot of pain and they are sick, once you put them to sleep, they have no experience of the body. When you're sleeping, when you're in a deep sleep, or when you are put into a deep sleep through some medical, methodology or intervention, at that stage, whatever may be happening to your body, however ravaged it may be with some disease, you have no such experience, right? So that means once that goes to sleep, then there is some experience here there still, right? So once all of this goes to sleep, the only thing that remains awake to be able to, even at that stage, you are able to wake up and say, I slept really deep. Who is that person? That is the real I. That is saying, I slept really deep. There is an observer there. And that observer cannot be your mind, because your mind went to sleep. Cannot be your chitta. Chitta went to sleep. It is not ego, because ego went to sleep. It is not your intellect, because that went to sleep. So what is observing is what is called the Anand Kosh, because the only thing you experience in that space is Sukh, Anand, bliss, calmness, happiness. Which is why people who are in a lot of pain, you will often hear them say, just put me to sleep. Because in sleep, there is peace. In sleep, there is bliss, away from the pain and the travails of the world. Okay? Now,
Similarly,
it's a similar thing which sages say that, so this is at a physical level. People have experienced it. If you've never experienced that, you can never tell it. But we all experience it on a nightly basis. And whenever we get sick, we can attest to it. Similarly, there are sages who have attested to being in touch with that Anandmay Kosh without going to sleep. The difference is that when you have gone to sleep, your intellect also goes to sleep. Your chitta also goes to sleep. So there is very little to take back when you are in the Jagrat Avastha. Now, sages have been able to reach that Anandmay Kosh, have been able to be in touch with that Anandmay Kosh and stay in touch with that Anandmay Kosh over an elongated period of time while being in Jagrat Avastha. And they talk about the extreme state of bliss, extreme state of peace, extreme state of happiness and joy that they experience. And from that space, then they act in the rest of the world. All their karma, all their bhakti, everything comes from that space. And they say that once you have experienced and you tasted that elixir, you never want to have any connection with the material world anymore, because this material world is just a dukhalaya. It only gives you pain. It is always a source of pain or unhappiness, because there is pain associated with acquisition of anything in this world. There is then suffering and anxiety associated with constantly upkeep of whatever you've acquired. And there is worry of constantly being able to keep that thing with us. And as and when it is going to leave, because it is temporary, everything in this world is temporary. So at some stage, whatever it is that you've acquired will go away. Whether it's a relationship, a person, a thing, a feeling, a state of being, whatever it is going to go away. And when it goes away, it causes a lot of unhappiness, a lot of sense of emptiness, because you feel like, oh, you've lost something that was very dear to you in some form or capacity. So this world is only a constant source of unhappiness in one way or the other. So it's called the dukhalaya. And the sages who have understood this and experienced that elixir now want to have nothing to do with this world except for doing their duty. And these are the seers of the truth. They have seen the truth. And through them, the Shruti comes. All our Vedas are called Shruti. Gita is a Shruti, the one that has been heard by them or seen by them. And then we hear them from the sages, those who have seen it or heard it. We hear them. Abhinav, you were saying something.
Yeah, so let's try something different, if you don't mind, Tuna. I'd like to hear 2 or 3 examples, personal examples of when, where, and how you discovered the observer, or you believe you have an observer.
I can go first. So when I kind of like met with a, small motorcycle accident, and after that, like I was recovering, but for whatever reason, it was taking much of a time, and didn't uh, didn't really this thing like have a direct cure. It has to the waiting and keeping your legs up is the only cure. It was like a secondary infection or something that has happened at the hospital, and gone through a bit of a this thing little longer time. Have to be in rest and then like have to heal from home. That's the situation that I was in. But didn't took it really uh, personally. Somehow it didn't affected the mental health. Typically, if you are sitting in one place, like when you are like super busy times, if you are there trying to rest even for a day or two, you will go through a lot more pressure in the mind, right? Like that didn't happen luckily. Even if it took a little bit more time, was able to recover well. uh, God's grace, touch wood, and then be back in action. So then the doctors were telling potential to amputate at that time. That was the kind of a case it was, and luckily all went well. That was the this thing that they were giving at the time. So if you possibly take your mind out and put it into anything like God or whichever thing that you are connected closely with, uh, instead of brooding over your own problem statement. I think that is what has helped me at that time. So that was my experience closest.
Thank you for sharing. I'll share mine to give more to be transparent as well. I first, and I regularly experience it while playing sports, because when you play sports, like you've just Right now, I play squash. When I play squash and the shot doesn't go well, I can experience anger, I can experience irritation. Then I'm experiencing anxiety. Oh my God, this player is so much better than me. But in all of that, I also experience an observer who is observing all of these things. And it's very easy for me to then switch to that observer, say, move on, take a deep breath, accept it, move on, let's get back to the next point. And the moment you play the next point, the emotions are all gone. The thoughts are all gone. And when you're playing the game, there is no role of intellect, there is no role of mind, there is no role of anything. There is just an observer who's observing. And when I finish a game and I walk out, I can sometimes visualize myself from like a camera on top, and I can replay the entire point. So I know for a fact that there is an observer, and that everything else that I experience is this stuff that you can point to. Anyone else would like to share before we move on?
Yeah, for me, that is the meditation, because I do Kriya Yoga, which is a meditation yoga. So when we sit and we just observe, like anyway, we have to focus on the breath, because mind and the breath are very interconnected. So when we are focusing on the breath and make ourselves calm, and then we feel the thoughts, we observe the thoughts, like how it is coming, what it is coming, and what all in the mind. So that stage, I would say, being the observer state.
Great. Great. All right. If anyone else wants to share, please. Otherwise, let's continue.
Okay, we'll continue. Bhagishri, will you read with us?
Yeah. The Lord talked of the sages who know both the field and the farmer. Does the knowing mean only knowledge of the functioning of the different organs of the body? The Lord explains.
Kshetrajñam chapi mam vidhi.
Kshetrajñam chapi mam vidhi.
Sarvakshetreshu bharata.
Sarvashetreshu bharata.
Kshetrajñam.
Kshetrajñayotyanam.
Yat yajnanam matam mama.
Yajnanam matam mama.
Yeah, go ahead, read.
O Bharat, in all the fields, know me to be the farmer or the knower of the fields. And real knowledge or perception is to know the field and the farmer in their essential characteristics. Real knowledge. In this shloka, the Lord says that He, as the supreme divinity, is the knower or the farmer of all the fields in His aspect of the individualized self or Jivatma. The Supreme Self and the individualized self are two distinct terms, but in their essential meanings, they are identical in the same manner in which the ocean and the waves are two terms, both signifying the same material, water. The upper surface of the water, which comes in contact with air, appears in the waves in the shape of waves. Similarly, the aspect of the Supreme Self reflected in the body is called the individualized self. This reflection apparently gives to the individualized self an identity distinct from the Supreme Self, but in its essential character, the reflection is only imagined and is not real. The Supreme Self is one and is undivided. But since it is reflected in different bodies by phenomenal nature, it appears to be divided. In fact, the division is in reflections only and not in the self, which is always one. Thus, the division in the self is due to the imposition of different names and forms. For example, the bank of a river may be divided into several bathing ghats. Some bathing ghats may be well constructed while others may be consist of plain mud. The division of the bathing places does not affect the water of the river, which remains the same. The distinction lies only in the relative conveniences which the different bathing places provide. Similarly, the reflection of the self in the bodies varies from one body to the other, but the self is quite distinct from the bodies. In the second line of the shloka, it has been said that real knowledge consists of knowing the field and the farmer in their essentiality. This implies that real knowledge comprises the knowledge of the self as being distinct from that of the impositions of the names and forms. Also, it consists of knowing that the phenomena of birth and death, disease and grief, elation and disappointment occur only in the bodies, while the self is totally unaffected. This knowledge leads to ultimate perception. Usually, by the word knowledge, one understands knowledge of objects in which the knower is different from the object known. But the knowledge of the self is unique in so far as one who comes to realize the self immediately attains to it. For example, a piece of wood coming in contact with fire becomes fire itself. Similarly, the knower of the self attains the self and ends up in total perception. This is a fundamental difference between knowledge of objects and perception of the self.
So this is a relatively heavy shloka, but it actually covers a lot, right? It covers um, everything that we're talking about right now. So the first aspect is, again, that mirror example that I shared with you with the sunlight. Sunlight is not undivided. It may get, the sun rays might get divided because it's blocked and it shines differently in different places, but sun and the light emitting from it is exactly the same. Similarly, if you, each of us have a mirror, right? Depending on how clean and dirty it is, the sunlight coming to us is exactly the same. It reflects differently based on our antakaran, right? That's the first part of the shloka. That know him to be the consciousness that pervades the entire universe. You know, it's that entire proverb that sorry, it's that entire proverb, right? That if uh, uh, if a tree falls in a forest and no one is around, does it make a sound? Right? That proverb has been discussed over and over again. And in Gita, what is relevant to us is reality only exists when you perceive it. Otherwise, it just is. What is happening in the world, what is happening in the universe is just is. It becomes real to us only when we start perceiving it. But who gives us the power of perception? Who gives life to this body? Consciousness. Without consciousness, there is no perception. Can a chair perceive a sofa? No. Right? And if our antakaran was completely clean, if that mirror was completely clean, the consciousness reflecting would perceive everything as divinity. Right? So that's the first part of that loka, which is know him to be the farmer to all the fields we experience. The second part of the shloka is the more fascinating piece. Our entire job as seekers, our entire job as seekers is to understand the real knowledge on perception, to see him in every field. In any action, anything that we do if we can identify the difference between the field and the farmer, if we can start seeing the farmer everywhere, that is our main job as a seeker. Moment you're able to do it, you attain self-realization. Just like the wood catches fire, it becomes fire. The moment you are able to stay with that knowledge, you become self-realized. Because you know now you can see Bhagwanji everywhere.
And also because there is no other way for you to really understand the unmanifest self until you become it. Right? There is no way for anything that is limited to understand what is limitless. Because the very fact that you're limited in some capacity, you will limit whatever comes to you and gets filled inside you. Right? The only way to understand the limitless is to become limitless. Which is why when you understand the self, once you actually have that gyan, you become that gyan.
Which is also a very a segue from, I think, last week when we were speaking with Smita about the guilt and perfection, which is why perfection is a very scary thing to chase in this world. Because you are limited, you will never be perfect. There is no such thing as perfection. And you need to accept limitation to a certain degree to be able to go to that higher plane. Till you are chasing perfection, till you are chasing results, you are identifying with this. It's only when we move beyond it will we experience that.
We move on. Sanchita, you look at us.
The knowledge of the field and the farmer removes the illusions of the phenomenal world. Underlining the importance of this realization, the Lord says as a prelude.
So knowledge of the field and the farmer, knowledge of or understanding that there is a difference between the sentient and the insentient world. Being able to differentiate between who I really am, the capital I, the capital self, the capital S self, and the small s self. Being able to see that the intellect is not me, the ego is not me, the mind is not me, and this body is definitely not me. It removes the illusions of the phenomenal world. What are the illusions of the phenomenal world? The illusions are fear. So when these illusions of the phenomenal world are removed, it basically means what gets removed is fear, worry, anxiety, and body consciousness, separateness. These are the illusions or the impact of the illusions that actually get removed. So if we are experiencing these, that means we've not realized this knowledge. If we are still experiencing body consciousness, which means that there is still that I, me, minus, and them, theirs. If there is that feeling of separateness in how we deal with people, the bhav with which we deal with people. If there is fear inside of us, if there's anxiety or anger or grief or sorrow, unhappiness, hatred, jealousy, if we are experiencing any of those at any point of time, know that that knowledge has not dawned yet. These are the things that must start to get weeded away in our lives for us to know that there is progress being made.
You know, the irony is that we associate so much of, like, we celebrate birthdays, right? Which is essentially the birthday not of ourselves, but the start of our body. And as we grow older in this body, all of us can have an experience that we don't relate to our age ever. We always feel slightly younger. We always feel we can do more. But our bodies, as we grow older, you can feel the wear and tear. But that doesn't mean we are going through wear and tear. Our observer and our mental state is not going through any wear and tear because our experience of life is the same. It may suffer more because you're associating with the suffering of the body, but your capacity to experience life is exactly the same. That roti and that sabzi tastes exactly the same, right? Your experience of love is exactly the same, of a hug and a kiss, right? Similarly, we all know this to be true the moment we die. Because we never say, oh, Abhinav is dead. We say Abhinav is passed away. In any language, we always say Abhinav is passed away. So we know this to be true in the language we speak. But we lose that sense of truth in the way we live. Right? No, not every, we always say rest in peace. Why? Because peace is our ultimate natural state. That's where we eventually belong.
Let's go ahead and read.
You read the shloka?
Yeah. Tat kshetram yacha yadrakcha
Tat kshetram yacha yadracha
ya yadvekari yatascha yat
yadvikari yatascha yat
sa cha yo yat prabhavascha
sa cha yo yaprabhavascha
tat samasena me shrunu.
tat samasena me shrinu. What that field is, what its nature is, what changes are wrought in it, where it is from, and also what he, the self, is, and what his powers are. Hear all this from me in brief. The importance of this knowledge. The Lord stresses the need of knowing what qualities go to make the field, what is it, and also what changes it is subject to. Also, it is necessary to know what effect follows from which cause. He also emphasizes the importance of knowing the power of the self in manifesting himself by exercising control over nature.
So one of the most important qualities of what is called the kshetra, the field, is that it is constantly, pratikshan, it is getting destroyed. It is dying every single second. So the person you are looking at in this moment, you're looking at Tuhina in this moment. The next moment you will not look at, she's not the same anymore. Because some cells have died, something has happened, it's moved on. It never is exactly the same. Every single second it is transient, it is changing. That's the most important characteristic to know. It is transient, changing, ever changing, kshana pratikshana changing. Okay. And secondly, why is it important to understand kshetra and kshetragya so well and in complete depth? Why is he saying know the qualities that make the field? What exactly it is? What changes it is subject to? And why should you understand what is the power? It's because Bhagwanji had told us in chapter 12 that you should stick to vyakt form of upasana, the manifest form of upasana, the sagun form of upasana. Because he said, was the unmanifest aspect is impossible for you to relate to because of body consciousness. So what is the main badha? The main badha, the main struggle, the main problem, the main issue in understanding unmanifest is body consciousness. So wherever there is a problem, you have to solve that problem by going there only. So if the problem is body consciousness, you have to understand what does body consciousness mean and really do a deep dive into that for you to dissolve it. So people who have meditated will be able to probably relate to it a little bit better. That when you meditate on pain, right? I'm pretty sure at some point of time in meditation that exercise has come. You experience pain in your body, and that pain will come no matter what, whether you're experiencing pain before you sit in the meditation or you sit for long term on meditation, and you will have aches in your joints, in your calves, in your back, upper back, lower, everywhere you'll start to feel some kind of pain. Okay. The way to dissolve that pain away is to focus on that pain. The deeper you focus on that pain and you try and understand the nature of that pain, you keep going deeper into it and you keep experiencing, what does this pain feel like? Does it feel like needles? Does it feel like spasms? What exactly is it? The more deeply you go into that, go and question, or what is called, when you do an inquiry into that pain, the more you observe that pain deeply and try and understand it, the more it dissolves away. Okay. If you've not done this inquiry and this test before, then I urge that at some point of time, do this. Okay. This is a very simple exercise that you can do at any place. Sit in meditation long enough, and at some point of time, your body will start experiencing discomfort and pain, and then do an inquiry into that pain. Okay. It may not happen in the first instance, but you do it long enough and often enough, at some stage you will be able to sit long enough and focus long enough to be able to do a deep seated inquiry into that pain. The deeper the inquiry into that pain, the more you will understand that that pain is dissolving away, it is going away. Similarly, for this problem to be taken away, the body consciousness to be taken away, we can't run away from it. Running away is not the problem. You have to come to it and do a deeper dive into it. The deeper you understand it, the deeper the inquiry, the more you understand it, and the more it will start to dissolve away. Very similar to when as a scientist, you start to do an inquiry into the nature of matter, right? You start to observe what is matter. And then the deeper you keep going, the more space you start to see emerge. Solid is no longer solid. There are patches of solid stuff. There are smaller things that come together, but there is deep spaces in between. Then you dwell deeper into the concept of molecules. You go deeper still, you see, oh, there are atoms that are units. And then you see, oh, an atom is also not a solid unit. Oh, it has electrons and protons and neutrons, and everything else is space. Oh, I can't even pinpoint an electron any longer. I can't pinpoint where exactly the nucleus is. There is only probabilities. Then you go still deeper, and then the Newtonian physics gives way to the quantum physics. And then you realize there is no physical matter. It's only waves of energies. At the space of waves of energies, where is that matter? Matter is completely dissolved away. And the only thing that remains is energy. So it has dissolved into nothingness. This is science. Well-proven science. So we are using the same concepts of science, the same concepts of meditation as examples of that this works. Hence, a deep inquiry into body consciousness will help us dissolve the body consciousness. This is what is going to lead to Gyan. This is why Manan and Nidhi Dhyasan is so important. Without Manan and Nidhi Dhyasan, there is no inquiry happening. We're just reading and stuffing our mind with more words, which is nothing but a part of Kshetra. So we'll never go past the Kshetra unless we do inquiry, which is basically your Manan and Nidhi Dhyasan. Yeah, Kakul.
Because this is a heavy chapter, I'm just trying to understand. So Kshetra is the body, because Kshetra is ever changing. That's the idam. This. And that is basically the final self, which is the highest conscience, or Bhagwanji. And between between that, the Kshetra and that highest conscience, is it that chart which we have, speech, perception, action, those gross self, that's what we need to clean up to reach the final self. Is it like something like that?
So these are the 23 elements that you're talking about. And that's what I said at the start of the chapter. That is Kshetra. Everything in sentient is being referred to as Kshetra. So body is that. The physical, the gross elements, the 5 gross elements are that. The tanmatras, the next 5 elements, are also part of it's all part of the Kshetra. Okay, your objects of perception, objects of sense, everything is Kshetra, everything is this. Everything is sentient. The only thing that is Kshetragya is the only sentient thing, which is the Atma, which lies above and separate from this insentient nature. So everything that is composed of the 3 gunas of the nature is insentient, is part of what we call the Kshetra. Make sense? Okay. I think we can quickly do Shloka 4 as well. Okay. Rituj, will you read with us if you're available? Otherwise, Anita. Anita, I think you read.
Conclusion. The Lord explains that exposition which he is now initiating the form, the subject matter of different scriptures and teachings of the savants in the past.
Rishibhir bahudha geetam.
Rishibhir bahudha geetam.
Chandobhir vividhay prathak.
Sandobhir vidavai prathak.
Chandobhir
vividhay prathak.
Brahma Sutra Padaishchaiva.
Brahma Sutra Pradaichaiva.
Hetum Hetu Madbhir Vinishchateh.
Hetu Madbhir Vinishchataihi. It has been snug by seers in many ways and also has been chanted variously in Vedic hymns. It has been dilated upon in decisive and logical passage in various aphorisms or Vedantas, which reveals the Brahman, the tradition of the knowledge of this knowledge. The Lord says.
One second. So the words here, we have to be able to distinguish between Brahma and Brahma or Brahman. So what is being referred to here is Brahma or Brahman. Brahman. So it's not Bra, it Brahman, it is Brahma or Brahman. Okay. That is the way we refer to the unmanifest self. Brahman is one type of, a jati in human beings that in the Vedic way of life, right? And Brahma is one of the energies, the creative energies of the unmanifest aspect, which is Brahma. Okay, so the word here is Brahman.
Brahman. The tradition of this knowledge. The Lord says the exposition which he proposes to make form the subject matter of Vedic text and Upanishads, which contain conclusive and logical discussion of this knowledge. The seers and sages of the past have all expounded this very knowledge. The Vedantic aphorisms which lead to attainment of Brahman also convey the same meaning. For example, the very first aphorism of the Brahma Sutra by Maharishi Vedavyasa says, hereby follows the inquiry about Brahman. The aphorism which follows expound the same subject.
So what is...
So one...
Yeah, go ahead.
So one way to look at this shloka is Bhagwanji is actually telling Arjun, which is all of us, right? We are seekers like Arjun is seekers, that do not go intellectual shopping. Don't go and look for answers in 10 different books to try and find justification, to try and find parallels. You have one process, you have a book, go deep in it, you will reach the eventual truth. Any place which talks about, and there could be many different paths that people take to reach it, but eventually, if you reach the scripture and you follow a sattvic process, the end goal will take you to the same truth. And that's him telling us at this stage, at the beginning of Gyan Yoga, do not do intellectual shopping. You want to learn more with curiosity to reach the truth, great, but do not do intellectual shopping. You will go in circles, you'll reach the same place. But that doesn't elevate your sadhana.
There are three sources of knowledge. Okay. One is pratyaksh, that which can be seen. So you learn by seeing, you acquire knowledge by seeing and observing, right? Pratyaksh. You see, you observe. And scientific method is very much centered around pratyaksh form, right? It is you see, you observe, and you learn about the world by observing. The second is praman, that which can be inferred. Again, this is part of the scientific method of learning. You infer, right? So there is you infer by observing things around you. Like if you see smoke, you can infer that there must be fire somewhere because you have seen it before. So pratyaksh comes before praman. You go, you see that there is fire, it is creating smoke. Next time you see smoke somewhere else, you figure out that even if you can't see fire, you know that somewhere there must be fire. So there is praman. A lot of scientific knowledge uses inference, praman, right? A lot of our, all of our, the whole way of like, okay, you create a hypothesis and then you go about creating an inquiry around it and then you reach a result, right? This is around pratyaksh and praman, ways of acquiring knowledge. The third type of knowledge is called agam. Agam is that which you cannot reach by yourself. So you learn from the experience of others. You learn from the experience of Vedas, what is written in Vedas. You learn from the experience of the sages who've been there, gone there. Again, that's something that we've done as a part of our scientific knowledge acquisition. Because none of us would have seen a molecule by ourselves. But we go by the knowledge of the scientists who've seen that and have written it in the scientific books. So we know that everything is made of, even though it is solid, it is not really solid, it is made of blah, 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 right? So this is agam. We learn from the experience or what others have seen before us. But we trust them, for they have gone there and come back. Somebody has gone up to the Mount Everest and has come back. He will tell us what it looks like or feels like to be on Mount Everest. But going to Mount Everest or experiencing this on my own is agam for me. I have to go and learn from those who have gone before me. They prepare me and I trust them for what they have seen and what they have experienced. And I know that they will prepare me. So I will not just jump onto the whole bandwagon and say, I will go on my own, right? Because there's a lot of practice that goes before. And yes, I can practice on my own. I can learn from the own mistakes that I will make, but that will take forever. Somebody else has done this, gone there, seen it before. And so I will go join that camp. I will learn from the people who've done this before, and they will tell me, these are the practices you need to do. These are the things you must do, must not do. So this knowledge that we are seeking, that of Brahman, is encapsulated in the Vedas, the Upanishads, the scriptures. We read them and they tell us, You want this knowledge, you want this experience, do this, do not do this. Follow this, do not follow this. This is how you should be. This is how you should think. This is how you should behave. This is how you should be. If you read it, it will give you an excruciating detail the way to live life, the way to act, the way to think, the way to behave, what to eat, what not to eat, when to sleep, when not to sleep, all those things. And what is very important is, hereby follows the inquiry. It is, this knowledge is experiential, end of the day. Everything that you learn from everything is about putting it into practice. It is not to be let go at the intellectual level. You will never know what it is. Just like knowing what an apple is to eat it. Only that will tell you what apple feels like. I can have Kakoli tell me hundreds of times what apple feels like, looks like, smells like, tastes like. I will never know it until I actually take that bite. Right? And for that, I will need to go to the farm of an apple, or go to somebody who's gone to the farm and got me that apple. I have to take it, I have to wash it, I have to eat it. Okay, so this knowledge is very experiential. So we have to take these things from what is being told to us by the sages, by the scriptures, and then do an inquiry on them for our lives. Which is why we have to make everything related to my me story. If I'm not creating a me story from it, if I'm not doing an inquiry, if I'm not doing manan and nididhyasan of the satsangs, of the principles that we are reading, if I'm not looking at how it relates to me on a daily basis, where am I employing it, where am I not employing? First of all, being even aware that this has to be implemented on a daily basis in my life. Not something that will happen at like one major event in my life. No. Kshana pratikshana, this knowledge is being utilized. Am I aware of it? Am I watching what am I doing? Am I doing an inquiry on those principles and seeing how they relate to me? If I will not, then there is no other way. The only way to really get to this knowledge is through inquiry. That is why Manan and Nididhyasan is so important. We'll never, never, never get this knowledge. We may read Gita, attend satsang every day for the rest of our lives, and we'll still have no knowledge of Brahman. That is why Manan, Nididhyasan, practical implementation, practice, failing at it, and then figuring out why did I fail. The principle did not fail. I failed at implementing that principle. And then retrying and retrying and retrying. Only that will help me realize the knowledge of Brahman. I think we'll stop here for the class today, and we'll take questions or takeaways.
Just wanted to share one personal thing that has happened the past couple of weeks. You may have seen in the news and stuff, right? Like there is a huge floods in Chennai, heavy rain, cyclone, all that kind of thing. So we were also hit by that, and kind of flooding, all that happened. But there was no panic, right? Personally, the level of maturity, I think it has improved quite a bit of it. So in spite of what all can go wrong, if you keep thinking about all that negative things and so on, it would have been like a pure panic mode, right? With a special kid in hand, all that kind of thing. But we were able to take steps what is necessary, and easily, and recovery was much better also, and we were able to help others to recover back faster. So that's something I could feel that is changing essentially.
That's amazing, Vijay. Thank you for sharing. I think this is where we will start to see our growth, like where I am today or how I'm dealing with the situation today, which is how I would have dealt with it 2 years ago, right? Like what Vijay shared. These are the ways where we can start to, in small ways, see the value this knowledge brings. And so we know that it will lead to peace. It will lead to calmness and happiness. Thank you for sharing, Vijay.
Hi, shall I go next? For me, this chapter is very special because I joined Kumar's class exactly in this chapter.
The vision.
Yeah. But long ago, 3 years, right? Like almost 3 years. So it will be now, how I am looking at it after all these 12 chapters, it feels very different. Because starting from 13, and to go through Karma Yoga and Bhakti Yoga and come to Jnana Yoga, it makes a lot of difference, right? To just like how in my how I am taking it in. So that is the thing. And today's amazing class, and my takeaway today is this inquiry, Manan and Nididhyasan. And as you said, Tuhina, you were mentioning about this body pain. And when we go deeply into the body pain, there is a saying where the attention goes, the energy flows there. So I was just remembering that because when the energy flows in there, that part, and then we get that, see it clearly, and then we can feel that healing in that part. So we had to bring that same thing in the body consciousness. So that is my big takeaway. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, I can. Sanchita, you want to go next?
No, Anita, please go ahead. No problem.
So, I mean, I don't know how, I mean, I just have to let Kavita know. I don't know how she started with this, first as a 13th chapter. This is very heavy subject. So I'm sure she would have been lost when she started this. So for me, the takeaway, for me is when you said we learn from other experiences. So how we needed to take that first step, after learning from that someone else's experience, how we have to take our step towards what we needed to achieve. That's one of the things that is, that strike me, let me start think about, how I have to do it in my day-to-day life.
Yeah. I think, somewhere you mentioned, when you spoke about the illusions that are still there. And, when I look at myself, I mean, I still sometimes, go through things like fear, anxiety, worry. It's all there. And I know that, I have a long way to go. But, what has really started helping me is this whole Nam Jap. And I've seen that, whenever I'm in a situation and I don't know how to deal with it, so I just start doing job, no matter where. I mean, whatever that situation, even, and I've seen that slowly, it just, I don't know how, but, either the solution is just comes to me, or it just, what I was thinking to be a problem, or I didn't have, I was feeling overwhelmed. I think that the feeling passes, goes away. So for me, that has helped. And this chapter is a lot. I mean, I may have to go back to the recording to even, understand the chapter again. It's quite heavy. But what has happened in the last so many months, when I started doing this, when I started this Gita journey, I think it was very overwhelming for me, to understand, even concepts of individualized self, and all of it, the self with the big S and everything. I mean, but now I think with time, I think the concepts are getting clearer. And the moment you start the moment I start having my me story, or saying, how I would react in a certain situation, I think a lot of these things is becoming clearer to me. So yeah, it's a long journey ahead, but but I think Naam Jap has really helped me so much.
Thank you for sharing, Sanchita. So let me correct one thing that you said. I still sometimes feel fear, anxiety, blah, blah. We don't sometimes feel it. We all feel it all the time. Every single second we are in body consciousness. Let's make no mistake about it. The only times we become aware of it when they are in an extreme form and they bubble up way too much to the surface. But they are present every single second and we're not aware of it. So the whole inquiry is to be able to become aware of it every single second. Every second we are in body consciousness. Every second we are being attached to this world. Every second, every thought is of this sansar. And if we are thinking about sansar, make no mistake about it, we are doing pap. So if your mind is not contemplating on the Lord, in that second, you're doing pap. So when you're doing Nam Jap and you have Lord in your mind, you are slowly cleaning away that pap. Okay? That is why there is this whole thing of like increase your Nam Jap. Okay? Because only during that time that you're doing Nam Jap is when you're not committing pap. That's the truth. Every other second of the day, you're committing pap. Do Nam Jap to cleanse that away. The more Nam Jap we do, the more pap we cleanse away that we commit on a daily basis and what has happened in the past and in our previous life. As we clean our pap away, which is what we call clean our mal away, just by doing Nam Jap, it being on your tongue, you not watching it, you not focusing on it, you not being fully concentrated and being aware of it. Even then, it's like doing jhadu of the house. जहां भी झाड़ू पड़े, आप ढंग से नहीं झाड़ू कर रहे हो, पर जहां पड़ेगी वहां सफाई हो जाएगी. Wherever it is going to fall, it is going to clean that house. Okay, and till the time we don't clean this mal away, clean this dirt away, clean the pap away, we will not find the gyan. The first thing is to cleanse the dirt. Okay, once we do that, then comes the vikshep. Vikshep is our problem of not being able to focus, ekagrata. We have to get to a point of where we can focus on the Lord. That means we can see Bhagwan Ji in every single thing at every point of time. Every VVGP, we see Bhagwan Ji. Vikshep is that we are not able to focus. Our mind is constantly running back because of our past habits into the sansar. We're always thinking of sansar. And that is why one of the remedies or one of the ways in which we can try and slowly chip away at the vikshep is that when you do first mal kaise hatana hai? Naam jap throughout the day, just your tongue. Vikshep kaise hatana hai? Try and do at least 1 or 2 mala with completely like sit down in one place and just focus on Bhagwan Ji. Just have some reminder, some way of like whatever picture you have of him, focus on that and try and keep your mind focused on that. Even if you do just one naam jap, one mala, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, whatever you can, should try and do that. And that will make you aware of your vikshep, of how quickly your mind wanders. And that is just a sample for you to become aware of how quickly you are constantly being attached to sansar at all points of time. Okay, these are just ways of inquiry, ways of becoming aware and ways of cleansing. Slowly, that practice itself will increase. And then slowly after, once you become adept at focusing on him in one concentrated focused point of time, that focus will start to manifest itself in other ways, in other parts of your life. And then slowly you will get to a stage where you're doing a living meditation, right? Every day at all points of time, you see VVGP, vikshep also goes away, right? So the mal and vikshep are too important. There are 3 things, but let's just focus on mal and vikshep first. Let's try and cleanse them out of our lives first. So start with just mal for now. Do more Nam Jap, as many as you can throughout the day. That will take away that pap. And as pap starts to cleanse away, our view of Nam Jap as a chore will go away. The more we see Nam Jap as a chore is just an indication of how much accumulated pap I have. And as the pap starts to reduce, my ruchi or rati in namjap will increase. My love for namjap will increase. And that will slowly lead to less and less vikshep and more focus. Okay? Next.
I can say, for me, very quickly, what Avinav said today many times about the mirror, which is clean, will reflect more sunlight or divinity, and linking it back to what Tuhina said later, that Nididhyasan, Manan, those are the ways where I can cleanse myself so that I can reflect more divinity. But more than that, I want to share two things which has happened to me in this whole Gita journey and Ramcharit. I have kind of started understanding there's no point panicking in a situation, and like 3 days back, Obijit has been detected with COVID. If this would have been an earlier me, I would have like called my Sanchita. I would have called, like, I would have created so much of drama around it. But I've really started believing when I was not as good, if he had supported me so much, I'm to now trying to really work towards, getting little towards that journey where he wants you to be that devotee by shedding some of it. Then now to he will be even more happier with me, and he will not give me he will give me a situation to learn from it, but he will not give a situation where I will not be able to deal with it. So this is something I've started really believing, that Bhagwanji will give me only a situation which I'm capable of dealing with. And he will, because he loves me, and maybe because I'm trying, he's happy that at least he's trying. Whether I'll be able to reach that in this life, I don't know. But uh, that's what, something which I feel. So I'm much more calmer. And the last thing, I also have started looking at death in a different way, because I also believe that it's okay. I'm going to meet all of them again in another life, may not be my next. So it's a soul's journey, and that brings a lot of peace for me. So these are very heavy, and I'm not trying to project, but I've really started accepting it, that this is how maybe the reality is. And that is what I wanted to share with you. And thank you. I mean, this is just because of this 3 years of whatever learning is happening. And again, when everyone talks and you and Avinav take us through it, and even now Shalini in RCM, like, it's mind blowing. Yes.
Your effort and your journey. He's powering it for you. Bhagishri?
Yeah, so this thing which we read, that whatever can be pointed out by finger is the body and the insentient world, and which we cannot point out, that is the sentient self. So that this kind of clears a lot of things, make it a lot of like easier to understand. And then the second thing was where we talked in this shloka too, that the pain and grief and everything is experienced by the body, and while the self is totally unaffected. This was really clear by Abhinav's example. Like when we age, the body is going through the aging process, but our experience would still be the same of everything. So this makes it clear that I am something different than my body. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Perfect. So let's do the closing shlokas now.
Om Sarvesham Swastir Bhavatu सर्वेषां शान्तिर्भवतु, सर्वेषां पूर्णं भवतु, सर्वेषां मङ्गलं भवतु। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ सर्वे भवन्तु सुखिनः, सर्वे सन्तु निरामया, सर्वे भद्राणि पश्यन्तु, मा कश्चित् दुःखभाग् भवेत्। ॐ अस्तो मा सद्गमय, तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय, मृत्युर्मा अमृतं गमय। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। ॐ पूर्णमद पूर्णमिदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते, पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेव अविष्यते। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः।
Narayan, Narayan, everyone. Thank you so much and have a lovely week ahead.
Narayan, Narayan.
Narayan.
Narayan.